I survived rape from Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's because, as much as it was my mother was the only one to truly rape me, I don't think it was her that did it. I think it was the Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that masturbation is completely wrong and that you shouldn't be touching yourself at all. As far as I remember, my mom has sexually abused me until I was about 8 or 9 years old. So if she ever caught me touching myself, she would come in later at night and she would pinch and twist my clit until it hurt. And sometimes it would hurt for days after. I do believe that I have some damage done sensitivity-wise to me because of that. Never mind the emotional trauma that put on me. I remember it happening many times, and I know that the elders encouraged her to do it. I was labeled a slut at a very early age by the elders. My grandmother and my mom both called me that before I was 7, all because I slept with my hands between my knees. So I remember the elders, at least 2 of them, came at least once to watch me while I slept. And I remember them standing outside my doorway talking about me like I wasn't even there. And they just encouraged my mom to keep doing what she was doing, and that would teach me. And they just said that was good parenting. It was counsel. It was correction. Those are all words that they used to describe it. The elders would use the scripture. It was from Job, and it was the rod of discipline to bring up your children. So they would say things like using pain as a correction tool was necessary parenting. So when they came to watch me sleep and saw that I had my hands between my knees, I got labeled as a slut for that, and it was very, okay, now here's a red flag. She needs to be watched for touching herself, things like that. So I know after that my mom ramped things up, and even in the bathroom, if she would catch me touching myself, like in the bath, she would come into my room later that night and pinch and twist and hurt my clit as punishment and to try and teach me to stop. Even going to the bathroom used to trigger me. I'm getting better and better at having less triggers, but I still deal with reoccurring nightmares of her doing these things to me, of her suffocating me so I wouldn't scream. I was diagnosed as bipolar, which I do think has to do with the trauma that I have been through for sure. I am still considered a baptized member of the Jehovah's Witnesses. I have myself from the religion and my congregation since I've been about 25 years old. So I grew up and was raised by my mother and father as Jehovah's Witnesses. So they were both born into that life as well. I think that when you look up the definition of a cult and you understand what a cult is, it definitely fits that. They have their own Bible, they have their own translation. So my opinion is that it's an extremist cult. I survived rape from Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's because, as much as it was my mother was the only one to truly rape me, I don't think it was her that did it. I think it was the Jehovah's Witnesses. Once I was 25, I decided to divorce from my husband, who was definitely a predator. We met when I was 15. He was 8 years older than me. I don't know what business a 24-year-old has being friends with someone that's 15, 16 years old, but we started dating when I was 16, and the Jehovah's Witnesses elders encouraged it. I was told multiple times when I tried to break off my engagement that because I had already said yes to my ex-husband by letting him put a ring on my finger by saying, yes, we'll get married, we'll set a date, that in God's eyes, I had already said yes, and you need to let your yes mean yes, and you need to keep your commitments because that's what a good, God-fearing woman would do. As long as I can remember, I've had suicidal ideation. I remember wanting to jump out into traffic and kill myself when I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. I have tried to kill myself 6 times in my life. The first time was because of my marriage. And then subsequent after that was once I started having PTSD of my mom sexually abused. Like any good cult, they teach that you shouldn't talk to members outside of it. You should only associate with fellow Jehovah's Witnesses, ones that are in good standing. For me, that meant I had one girl my age growing up, and we ended up going to the same school. Her and I were best buds for sure, and I was lucky that way because I know a lot of kids have grown up in smaller towns where they are the only Jehovah's Witness kid in their town. Once I moved to grade 10, I moved schools and I moved away from her. And that's when I would say I really experienced bullying for the first time in my life. Kids, my classmates, would notice that I don't celebrate Christmas. And one thing that's really stuck with me that makes Christmas really hard is multiple times, multiple different people would say, your parents don't love you. They won't even buy you a Christmas present. And that stung. And that's from people that, I saw every day at school, my classmates, my fellow, that's where their mind was. That's what I would think is. So that's what everyone else I go to school with thinks. But I'm supposed to believe that my parents love me and that the way that they treat me is love. I was left alone with some of the creepiest motherfuckers. Like, now that I'm out, there were men grabbing my ass when I was 13. I'm not the only one that happened to. There's just a lot of things. There's a lot of little things that are adding up and adding up, and it doesn't look good for them. The fact that they encouraged my mother to do what she did to me, and the fact that I know they keep such good records, because my parents were both baptized, so there would be a file on them somewhere about every little thing. And once I got baptized at 13, I'd have my own file, and there would be all these things about every time they talked to me, about recommendations on how to counsel me on what to do in my life, on everything, about if I could wear lipstick, about if I could dye my hair red. And I was bullied then. I believe I was bullied by the elders as well as I got older. 16, 17, 18 was really hard for me. And that's when I think also really started to hate my mother. Really started to hate her because I felt so alone. And it seems like there were so many people that wanted to be friends with me. I had people at school asking me to hang out, 10 different girls my age asking me, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to join this club? Do you want to do this? And I wanted to do it all, but my mom would say no. I couldn't even stay through science class to learn about evolution. My mom would send a note to get me out from learning that because Jehovah's Witnesses aren't supposed to learn evolution. I also believe I would have went back to school because they really encourage you to not have an education. So they say finish your grade 12 and then money is of the devil. So if you try and get a university education, shame on you. Just literally put your head down, listen to the teacher, get your education, don't make friends, and try to convert anyone you can. So I remember trying to preach to kids that I'd go to school with and be like, if you don't listen to me, God's gonna kill you soon. And the books that they had for kids were really graphic, like they still are, showing like people being like killed by like raining down. They literally teach that. I don't know how many times I was told, don't worry about going to university. The new system, the end of the world, will be here before you even graduate. So what motivation is there to give yourself a better life when you keep being told the world's going to end in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years? And I think I really just wanted to make the people that I'm really scared of me, because I was tired of being scared. I was tired of being scared of my mom, scared of the elders, scared of anyone that agrees with the things that my mom did to me. I'm scared of those people. I'm scared of my own grandmother. My own grandmother has threatened my life. Like, people need to know about this. People need to know. It's a story, and it needs to be told. I just have a lot of brain damage. There's no other way to explain it. I sleep a lot. I am still scared to fall asleep because of the nightmares. So it's a bad cycle of avoiding going to sleep because I don't want to have nightmares, but I also like sleep because then I avoid being awake, remembering what my mom did to me. Because there's not a day that goes by that I don't remember that I'm not triggered by it. Like, even if I choose to constantly change my thoughts when that comes into my head, there's so many things that remind me of her. Even I feel like once I got to be 25, I started remembering these things more, because there was a year of my life where whenever I stared into the mirror, all I saw was my mom looking back at me. And it was awful. It was absolutely awful. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that anymore. That's probably the hardest thing that I've had to deal with, because I couldn't do anything. I just wanted to sleep all the time. This was going on when I was at Bellwood last year, and I can't say I noticed a day when it stopped, but I'm just grateful that it's not every day anymore, because it yeah, it used to make life really hard. So before I really understood what my mom did to me, I was 24, 25 years old, and I was wanting to kill myself all the time, every day. And it was just like, why? Why? And I had almost driven my car into oncoming traffic, I don't know how many times. And then I finally found a link online from the university here for online therapy. So the online therapy really opened my eyes to that I do have depression and that I probably have anxiety as well. So most bipolars early on found this way of anxiety and depression, both present at the same time and very strong. I didn't know that then. I understand that now. So I started the online therapy, which was nice because I didn't have to see a person. I could just type out what I'm dealing with and my depression. And then I think they gave me an option of this kind of thing of like how to talk to your doctor about your depression. So I brought it up with my doctor, and they shared all my records with him. So he sent me to a psychiatrist. And then after 2 suicide attempts, I took myself to the hospital here, and I started having flashbacks while I was at the hospital. And the psychiatrist there really started to ask me really specifically about my childhood. No one else had done that up until this point. It was all very surface problems. But this doctor, she really asked me did your dad ever hug you? Did your dad hit you? Did your specifics? And then I said, I keep having this nightmare about someone recording me hurting my privates. I have this over and over, and I can't get it out of my head. And she said, it probably happened to you. And I said, who was it? Because it wasn't my dad, and it wasn't I don't know who it was. And I said, the only one left is my mom. Oh, so then we started talking about what my mom did to me as a kid. And she said, that's not parenting, that's rape. And I was just like, I had seen this psychiatrist for 30 minutes at this point. Never met this person a day before in my life. And she's asking me about this and literally just tells me that my mom used to rape me. And I'm just supposed to go home and live on my life. Yeah. I don't think that she did it for herself for any enjoyment. I really think that she was really brainwashed by them and believed that she wanted to save my life by making sure I wouldn't be a sinner. And I was like, you know what? I'm so suicidal. I want them to take me. I want them to kidnap me. I'll fuck them up. I don't care. That's what I told my friends. And I said, I'm making a sign and I'm going to protest. I don't care. Something needs to change. And if that means me being out there screaming my head off, I think that I can use all my gifts against them. They've taught me how to speak publicly very well. I'm also, my whole life I was told, oh, you're so beautiful, because they don't want to tell you're smart. So they tell girls you're beautiful because that's really all you're worth. I am a decently good-looking person. So if you want to use me as your face for things, I think it'll help. Because guess what? When people see this outside going like this at them, they're like, oh yeah, I want to see what that girl's sign says. But the one dude that's disfellowshipped, he's a big dude that's scruffy. He's not going to get people waving at him. We all have our part to play, but we all need to be able to know that we're not going to get murdered if we try and come up against this cult. So the anonymous website does its part to get people that maybe are scared of Reddit, because lots of people have now heard that Reddit has a lot of apostate information. And if you're a current Jehovah's Witness, you are told that it's of the devil to read apostate material. So you're basically scared you're going to get possessed if you go online and read about this. So my website is much more about support and just wanting to support people because it is very traumatic living through this. And it's a support group and it's just meant to be positive and keep going. Life gets better. Yeah, don't stay depressed. There is something better out there. I want people to know I'm not scared and that if something happens to me, if I go missing and y'all don't hear from me, there's a reason why. And when I actually went last spring and got tricked by my family into this program, I did have someone was like, "Hey, she hadn't posted for a while and started contacting everyone on my Instagram list and called the police and tried to make a missing report." So this guy I had never met and he just was like, "Yo, red flag." Then someone else that I like knew in real life, he did the same thing. So two people were worried about me. The second guy that I met actually found one of my cousins and it was fine. But people did actually try and notify the police that like, hey, like this chick was doing this and then she's gone. Again, like people do care. If you share your story, people do care. And I just want that's all I want to do is inspire other people. Inspire Jehovah's Witnesses to share their story and also inspire everyone else to see that there's some people that are really suffering that need help. So just brainwash yourself. Like, you got to re-brainwash yourself into something better. That's really what it's about. So that means talking about it and reading about it and maybe read a book about a hostage survival and about hostage negotiations and about surviving. I leave little notes like this around everywhere. Talk to yourself like someone you love.